do another gliding monologue. It's about 2:30 p.m. on Saturday, I think it's Saturday the 16th of May. I've been unemployed since middle of February. So this might be the last gliding trip I do. If I don't get employment soon, I own this glider, so it costs me very little to keep it, but it does cost me to fly it. And I've spoken just before about recruiting, so now let's talk about something else. I'm going to talk to you about troubleshooting. Today I went to prepare my glider to do what's called the daily inspection, or DI, and I noticed the day prior that I had a device on the pedal that wasn't working the way it was supposed to. This device is referred to by us as a FLARM, F-L-A-R-M. But you should just think about it as a collision avoidance. It's technically not that, but that's what it provides us in a sense. That FLARM device uses 4G technology like a telephone to predict if there's a risk from another aircraft or another glider that's FLARM equipped. And so it transmits my position and picks up the position of other gliders and works out time to collision, and then alarms accordingly depending on the amount of time that might elapse before we risk colliding. Now that device is connected to an external GPS antenna, even though it does have its own internal GPS. Rough air there. And it interfaces to a display. It has no display of its own, it's tucked away under the pedal. It interfaces to a display that I bought from Switzerland. That display I'll refer to as the V4 display. Now the V4 has not only the ability to display the location of aircraft that are a threat, but it also has a number of indicators on to tell you what's working and what's not working. You know, whether it's receiving a GPS signal, and whether it's receiving data, and whether it's sending data, and whether it's picking up other aircraft, and all these other things. It was working perfectly well when I put the aircraft back in the trailer a couple of months ago, and it wasn't working when I pulled it out. For those of you with a technical mind, the device itself and the display and anything else that the device is connected to need to have the baud rates set appropriately, in this case 9600 baud. And that's the way it's always been. You go through the configuration and you set it up, and it never needs to move, and it shouldn't have ever moved. But for some reason or another, the display appeared to not be receiving any information from the unit other than was required to display an error. And in simple terms, people might say, it looks like the FLARM isn't talking to the V4 display. And that's how people might bring a problem to you. Now, when we talk about problem solving, and I've been trained in various methodologies of problem solving, including Kepler-Trigo, the first thing that you have to do when someone brings you a problem is you have to define the problem. And this is what I'd like to talk about very briefly. Don't go into solution finding mode. Define the problem. The FLARM won't talk to the V4 display is not a very solid description of a problem. Now you have to do some troubleshooting, you have to do some investigating to help you work out how to define a problem. But that's what you're doing. You're not looking for a solution, you're just looking for a better definition of the problem than you presently have. And that's the problem. That's the thing. The error that many people make when they're trying to do problem solving. They don't adequately define the problem.
Remember, there are options going right hand downwind for runway 14, and it goes down longitude traffic.
You have to be certain that you're really defining the problem properly. So in this case, how would that problem be better defined? I started to look. And I don't know if I'm going to have time to go into it, but basically through a whole lot of troubleshooting methodologies that were designed to better define the problem, I got down to something like this. When I go through the setup to ensure that the V4 display is receiving data from the FLAM unit and the GPS, I get an instant indication that it is, but in 3 seconds time I get an error code that I've never seen before that looks like a 0 and a 1, and then I get the error codes that I am familiar with to say that there appears to be no data coming from the FLAM unit to the V4 display. Appears to be. You need to be very careful. And that's as well as I think I can define the problem while I'm busy flying an aircraft. And I had other indications to show that the GPS unit was talking via the FLAM through to another device called an UDI, which is our gliding computer. And I was convinced by that the GPS was working. But a better definition of that problem might be the UDI appears to be getting a GPS signal. I'm yet to establish where that signal is coming from, although the UDI does ask me to set port 4, which is the port that I would expect the FLAM to be talking to it on. And when I do that, it no longer requests me to set that port. And it appears, by its indications, to be getting GPS data. So there's an additional piece of information, while not defining the problem as such, is defining one of the symptoms that we see that might give us a clue. So I'm going to cut the whole story really quite short. I looked at what would stop data flowing from a FLAM to the V4 display. Couldn't find anything. I was pretty certain that the same cabling system was providing information to the UDI, so I was pretty sure that it was unlikely that there was some problem with that system of cabling and splitters and so forth. However, I went and changed them all because I had spare cables. And that confirmed that the problem wasn't due to cabling. So it probably suggests that it's not just a case of no data being transmitted from one device to the other. And this GPS situation seemed a little bit odd. So I removed the external GPS antenna from the FLAM and pulled the FLAM out from under the panel into open space so that it could see the sky, so that its own internal GPS could work. And guess of course what happened? Everything worked. So the solid state GPS antenna had failed while sitting. Now, electronic devices are notoriously difficult to troubleshoot because they tend to just go along fine and fail. Mechanical devices tend to play up a little bit first. Solid state devices are very reliable, but when they fail, they just simply fail usually. An electronic device's mean time between failure is very sensitive to temperature, and that GPS antenna sits on top of a black panel. So there you go, that all adds up. I've now got a working farm unit. It's using its own internal GPS, and I put the unit on top of the panel momentarily while I wait to get home and get my other GPS antenna. I'm going to talk to you about another problem-solving thing that I did in my previous work when I worked for General Electric, but I recognise I'm running over time here.